Woke but weaponized. When healing becomes a shield against self awareness. A trauma informed, science backed deep dive into the subtle ego traps of early healing. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Rise Up Voices from the Frontlines. And I'm your host, Krista Fee. And this is a Foundations Edition episode. Welcome to the dark side of the healing journey, where compassion gets replaced with criticism, self reflection becomes projection, and every person who disagrees with us suddenly gets labeled as toxic. If you're ever caught yourself mid-scroll thinking, wow, everyone is so unhealed except me, this one's for you. This is a phenomenon I've seen in trauma survivors, spiritual seekers, first responders, therapists, and coaches alike. And the truth is, it's not a character flaw, it's just a phase. A sticky, sneaky, necessary developmental phase on the path to real growth. We're going to talk about what happens in the body and the brain during the healing journey, why some people start weaponizing psychological or spiritual language, and how to avoid becoming a better armored version of your former self. This isn't about shaming anyone. It's about naming what's happening so that you can rise above it. The power high of early healing. When someone begins their healing or spiritual journey, or when there is what feels like a major breakthrough, something wild happens in the nervous system. If you've lived in a collapsed, fawn heavy dorsal vagal state, meaning chronic disconnection, numbing, or people pleasing, your first taste of no feels like power. You start naming your needs, you stop apologizing for existing, you begin to draw lines, and it is exhilarating. This is the shift from dorsal vagal freeze into sympathetic mobilization, according to polyvagal theory. That fight-flight energy is finally back online. Your body goes from shutdown to mission mode. But here's the rub. Sympathetic energy, if not regulated, also fuels judgment, reactivity, and black and white thinking. Suddenly, you're not just protecting your peace, you're labeling everyone else a problem. So let's meet Chelsea. Chelsea's boundaries became burned bridges. Chelsea just left a toxic relationship and started therapy. She was all in, journaling, EMDR, somatic work. She even joined our women's healing group. For the first time in her life, she felt clear, strong, and awake. Within a few months, she cut off her parents, distanced herself from her best friend, and ended a relationship with a coworker, claiming they were all low vibration. When her sister called her out for ghosting the family, Chelsea replied, I don't hold space for trauma cycles anymore. In her mind, she was finally rising. In reality, she was spiritualizing avoidance. Her boundaries weren't boundaries at all. They were trauma responses dressed in new clothes. The weaponization of healing language. Let's be honest, we've all met someone who uses words like triggered, narcissist, toxic, or unhealed like emotional grenades. This is spiritual bypassing, a term coined by psychologist John Welwood. It describes the use of spiritual beliefs or healing language to avoid facing our own unresolved pain. But today's bypassing is more than just spiritual, it's psychological. People are using therapy lingo to dodge accountability, and it's not always conscious. They violated my boundary. Means they told me something I didn't like. I just need high vibe people around me can mean I don't want to be challenged. My peace is sacred can mean I'm avoiding all intimacy and growth. Let's look at Marcus. Marcus, the diagnostician. Marcus is a police officer, a dad, and a trauma survivor. And after years of bottling everything up, he finally got into therapy. His clinician introduced him to IFS, internal family systems, and nervous system regulation, and something clicked. But soon Marcus began labeling everyone around him. His ex-wife was borderline, his lieutenant was dysregulated, and his teenage son was emotionally immature and probably enmeshed with his mom. And every time someone challenged him, he'd shut it down. I'm not here for emotional ambushes. What Marcus didn't see was that his healing journey had become a fortress. The same nervous system that used to shut down was now in constant fight mode, disguised as clarity. The brain science behind this bypass. Here's what's happening underneath the hood. As people move out of shutdown into mobilization, they experience a surge in energy, control, and clarity, but not safety. Without reaching ventral vagal regulation, the place of connected calm, they're stuck in reactivity. Prefrontal cortex re-engagement. Trauma can shut down the thinking brain. When healing begins, the prefrontal cortex starts firing again. Suddenly, people can reflect, analyze, set goals, but early on, this creates cognitive overconfidence. Now I see the truth and everyone else is asleep. So let's talk about limbic hijack. The emotional brain craves certainty after long-term chaos. Early healing offers scripts and labels, tools that help make sense of pain. But when those tools get used to control the environment instead of transform the self, it's no longer healing, it becomes ego. When boundaries become walls. Boundaries are beautiful, they are necessary, but when they're used to punish, isolate, or avoid intimacy, they become walls. So let's talk about Ashley. Ashley and the high vibe exit. Ashley is a yoga teacher who survived childhood religious trauma. She found healing in breathwork, sound therapy, and divine feminine energy, and her life turned around. But when her mom was diagnosed with cancer, Ashley pulled away from her family. She said the frequency was too low and the ancestral trauma was too dense. She missed her mom's final months. Her sister begged her to come. Ashley replied, "I'm not available for those cycles anymore." Ashley wasn't cruel, she was afraid. The tools she had learned to survive became the justification to not show up. Her healing became an excuse to abandon rather than stay connected while honoring capacity. Matching energy isn't healing, it's mimicry. There's a viral mantra floating around social media. I don't chase, I attract. I don't match effort, I match energy. Sounds fierce, right? But here's the problem. If the energy you're matching is defensiveness, avoidance, or coldness, you are not healing, you're mimicking. Matching energy often means outsourcing your regulation to someone else's dysregulation. Let's talk about Devin. Devin and the energy mirror. Devin was a military veteran working on his reactivity. After years of swallowing his emotions, he started therapy and was learning to set boundaries. But in his new relationship, he kept saying, I just match her energy. If she's cold, I'm cold. If she pulls away, I pull away. I'm not starting anything. I'm just meeting her where she's at. His therapist replied, oh, or you're letting her nervous system dictate yours. And that landed. What Devin thought was strength was actually emotional mimicry, a defense pattern. His healing hadn't yet evolved into leadership. He wasn't responding from wholeness. He was reacting from fear. Real healing is staying rooted in your energy, regardless of the room that you're in. So let's reframe. Compassion, not contempt. So how do you know if your healing has taken an ego detour? Here's some reflection questions you can ask yourself. Do I label others more than I reflect on myself? Are my boundaries about protection, or are they leaning on punishment? Do I feel superior to people who haven't done the work? Do I use healing language to avoid discomfort, feedback, and hard conversations? Do I match energy instead of leading with my authenticity and integrity? Here's what true growth looks like. Boundaries grounded in self-respect, self-love, not fear. Compassion for others and for others' coping mechanisms, even if you walk away. The humility to say, I'm still learning too. A softening, not a sharpening of the lenses you see the world through. You don't have to choose between power and humility. Healing is powerful. It should feel good. It should reconnect you to agency. But if your healing makes you harder, colder, or more contemptuous, you may still be protecting a wound. Real healing reconnects us to curiosity. Real boundaries hold space for grace, and real power doesn't need to prove itself. You don't have to be perfect, just willing to notice, recalibrate, and rise again with less armor and more truth. Because the deeper the healing, the gentler the spirit. If any of this resonates with you and you would like to know more about the Woke But Weaponized course at Rise Up Phoenix Trauma and Crisis Institute, please feel free to message below at the link below or above, depending on where you're getting this podcast from, or click the link and schedule a brief one-on-one connection call with me, and we'll talk about what you're experiencing, what your goals and objectives are, and see if this is the right course for you. It will be open for registration within the next couple days, and I cannot wait to share the entirety of this course with you.